you are, where you're hailing from, and we'll get started on our show today with our show today. So come on in, check in, family. I just want to let you know that I have just a little bit of proof that the deep state really is being taken down. And what I mean by the deep state, I mean the government. And what does government mean other than a institution or agencies that govern or control the mentality, govern, control, or manage the mind? So come on in, family. I have some proof. I got something to tell you about how the deep state has not been protecting us, of course. So, what I'm talking about today is TSA. TSA or security is being replaced by private security. This is interesting news because a lot of people are saying our freedoms are going to be really, really in danger now that TSA isn't there. But I'm going to show you that TSA has not been protecting us. So come on in, check in, family. I'm just going to play a little bit of music. Thank you so much for sending in the gifts already. So come on in, I'll play a little bit of music and I hope you can hear me. So we're going to get right on in. Let me know in the comment section if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you put a 1 in the chat, please, if you can hear me? Because I'm recording from my phone and sometimes it's different from my phone. So let me know if you can hear me. I don't see any ones in the chat. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me. So come on, good, good. So let me play this a little bit of music and I'm going to show you how, even though TSA is being replaced by private companies, this might be what's in our best interest. Really, really fascinating. Let me play just a little bit of music while I look at my notes right quick. Come on in, welcome. Hello, aloha, aloha. Hopefully you can hear this and you can see me well. Let me, just for a minute. Dr. Kia Pre, shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe how to see through the night. Ancient scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one. So I'm just posting on my other social media outlets to let people know we're live. So come on in the room. Give me about 1 more minute. To a brighter, freer day. Come on in the room, family. Through her channel, knowledge flows, breaking chains that hold us close, teaching paths to abundance and wealth, guiding others to free themselves. Soul tribe rising, hear her call. Come in the room, family. Raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. From currencies to investments divine, she's helping her tribe to realign with wisdom. Do you feel like I'm helping the tribe to realign? Do you really feel that way? Let me know. Send me some hearts in the chat if you appreciate the work we do over here. I might think I'm helping, but I need to hear it from you. Thank you. Almost done posting. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way. Come on in the room, family. To a brighter, freer day. This is my jam. So try rising, hear a call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia, come on in the room, lights the way to a new and brighter day. Let me get on off here. All right, let me get out of here. Thank you, Soul Tribe, for chiming in. Thank you for all the hearts. I appreciate you all so much. I say all the time, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be relevant, really. So you can think you have a purpose all day long, but if there's nobody listening to you, what does it matter? You could think that you have a message, and I do feel that I have a message, but unless you tell me that the message matters, it doesn't matter. So 1 minute, family, I just wanted to let people know that we are live because a lot of people just don't believe that something is really happening in terms of the government being shut down or in terms of our freedoms being restored or returned. But I want to tell you, these people that were in power were just taking such advantage of us. It's egregious what they were getting away with. It's horrible. 1 second. Let me see if I can get, okay, here we go. Yes, so I think everybody now knows that we're live. So I'm going to get off of all these other social media platforms. Hold on 1 minute. I just needed to send a link to people, let them know that we're live because I think this is important. So let me set this phone down. And I want to make sure I say hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm happy to have you today. Happy Friday. Yay! It's Friday. It's Friday night and I feel all right. The party's here on the west side. But anyway, it is Friday night and we have some good news because things are changing unbeknownst to most people. What I came to see, and I'm going to show you a video of a person who talks about and publishes or announces all things that occur in Florida. This person lives in Florida, in Southern Florida, so he reports on what's happening in Florida. And one of the things that happened is that Tampa Airport, one of the airports here, and of course in America, has decided to replace TSA, Transportation Security Authority, with private companies. Now, before 9/11, private companies were making sure that the checkpoints were okay. Nobody was bringing in weapons or trying to bring in laundered money. Nobody was bringing in children. And they were doing a phenomenal job. But after, I should say 1/19, read it backwards, when that situation occurred at the Pentagon and at the World Trade Towers, after that, then all of a sudden the government said we weren't safe. They needed to infringe upon our freedoms and have surveillance cameras. They needed to frisk us and make sure we weren't bringing in any type of weapons of mass destruction or laundering money or harnessing or harvesting children or bringing children across the airways. They wanted to make sure we weren't trafficking any humans, women, children, boys or girls, or any drugs or anything, right? Because after 1/19 happened in September, oh my God, it was a threat to our national security what these other people were doing to us. How dare they do such a thing to us, the government said. Therefore, they had to do something. So they replaced the private security with TSA, Transportation Security Administration, government workers, meaning that now taxpayers had to pay government workers to frisk us, surveil us, and check us to see if we were a threat to America at the airports. And what we discovered as we went through those horrifying transitions was that they were molesting us by touching all over our body. They were discriminating against women with afro textured hair, forcing us to bind our hair up. We couldn't wear it out in afros. And whereas other people that had naturally kinky hair, or if they had roller sets, if they weren't melanated people, they would go right past. But God forbid you be an afro textured woman with an afro. You could be sent back and told to braid your hair or pull it back. All because we weren't safe, because 119 happened. And when 119, read it backwards, happened, oh, they said we could carry threats, weapons in our afro textured hair. Or you might put something in your trousers. Or if you were a male of any ethnicity, you might try to put it underneath your body parts, your private parts. Remember that? So they started molesting us and utilizing TSA to do it. And not only utilizing them, but utilizing our tax dollars to fund it. But well, what have we here? Something new is going on, my friends. Let's read this article together. 3 airports, they love to do things in threes. We always tell you that. 3 is one of their numbers. The deep state, the elite, the people in control, secret societies love the 3, the Trinity. Father, Mother, Son, Asar, Aset, Heru, and you know the spiel. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. They make that a male, but the Holy Spirit is really the woman. They love the 3s. 3 airports opt in to private security model instead of using TSA now. But union officials say more could threaten public safety if we replace TSA with private security. Well, is that true? Before we answer that question, let me just read a little bit about this. This article came out July 23rd. This was just a week ago. 3 airports across the United States have repeatedly or reportedly become the first facilities to opt into the TSA's new private security model that allows third party, another 3, vendors to replace federal agents at security checkpoints. Now, the news was met with strong opposition. And who was it met strong? Who met it with strong opposition? Oh, it came from the union that represents thousands of TSA workers. Now, on one hand, we get it. TSA workers don't want to be replaced. After all, they work for the government. Government pays well, relatively compared to other places, and the government has benefits. Oh, but my darlings, must I bring to your attention that June of 2024, the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, right? Remember when the Supreme Court determined on June 2024 that the Chevron doctrine had given the government too much power? Therefore, the government was infringing upon our freedoms. And then the Supreme Court went on to say that all 447 government agencies that's attached to the federal government must be dismantled, because not only had they infringed upon our freedoms and they had too much power, but they were committing treason. They were unconstitutional and unlawful. Then they went on further to say any federal judges that went along with whatever the federal government said and infringing upon our freedoms, those judges committed treason as well as the government and all 447 agencies. And any judge that knew of a judge that allowed all the shenanigans to go on or hurled us off in the court and made us pay their court fines, well, those judges that knew of judges that allowed that to happen and didn't report it to the president, why, by golly, they committed misprision of treason. So you have the government agencies, the judges, the federal judges, and their cohorts all committing treason or misprision of treason. Therefore, their assets must be frozen, they must be arrested, and they will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. 2024. And then lo and behold, the next month in July, the Supreme Court of the United States determined that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from, separately from the Federal Reserve central banking system and issue out their own gold-backed currencies, which in essence means that states now have their sovereignty back, and state-sponsored banks now are not a part of the Federal Reserve central banking system, which means that now we, the people, and our state-sponsored banks or our own personal banks have more power than the Federal Reserve central banking system and the federal government. It all must collapse. So what happened in 2025, right on the heels of 2024, when the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine and determined that the government had too much power, and then they shut down the Federal Reserve central banking system? Here comes President Donald Trump, the trumpet in Zion, blowing its shofar, the trumpet, to make an announcement that the deep state has been coalescing against we the people and therefore must be downsized. And that's why President Trump came in January 2025. He created a sovereign wealth fund comprised of stocks, bonds, real estate, rare earth minerals, precious metals, money from taxes and tariffs, and put it in a trust and said, this fund, this trust fund guarantees that all American nationals are now trust fund babies. That money will be injected into the society in our nation. It will fund humanitarian projects. It will go to each individual as an allotment of money, now known as universal high income. It will take care of the infrastructure in America, and it will be put into other investments to bring in more money for we, the American people. He did that January 2025. Then he issued out in that 1 year alone 225 executive orders to take down the deep state. He then in September met with the military, said, I need to meet with the military generals from all over the world. And he sent them into the nation and all of the major cities, especially the cities run by the Democratic Party and sanctuary cities. He cleaned up domestic terrorism and some of these rogue gangs that we have here, are national American gangs, but he also cleaned up the foreign nationals with their militia, their MS-13 gang members, their drug and trafficking and money laundering, human TSA trafficking. He cleaned it up, and they're still on the grounds, the National Guard is. So be mindful that the news I'm going to report to you today is just a little bit of a hint of why this country might be soon shut down, and even the world. So in 2025, Trump created a sovereign wealth fund. He started downsizing the government. He issued out 225 executive orders. He released the National Guard, and he met with Elon Musk, the billionaire, then trillionaire, now back to being a billionaire because he allegedly lost his trillions. He made him the head of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and said, now you are tasked with the job of downsizing the government. Why? Because the government is unlawful, unconstitutional, treasonous. Remember? I mean, we didn't need the Supreme Court to say that, but they said that in 2024, and they determined that as such, the government must be downsized. That means these jobs that the government created now must be dismantled all across the board. 447 government agencies. Why do you need 447 government agencies to govern or control you or your mind? Govern, control, manage, meant the mind. You don't. We don't. So 2025 alone, hundreds of thousands of people were let go from the government. They were either asked to take early retirement, forced to resign, or fired. But that's been going on all along. You can look at resignation.info, and we've been reporting about that for the last 10 years. You'll see forced resignations all across the board. Prime ministers all across the world were forced to resign early, retire early, starting way back in 2016. CEOs of banks, CEOs of corporations, not just in America, but all across the world, were forced to resign. This has been going on for the last 10, 11, 12, 13 years. But now people have a growing awareness that the government is the enemy against we the people. Some people just needed to hear that the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine. The Chevron doctrine had given the government unlimited powers and anytime or expansive powers. And anytime you tried to challenge that in the courts, the federal judges would say, no, you kind of do whatever the federal government says, any of the 447 agencies, because they're the experts. I agree. Trump is the liquidator. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So let's get to today's news. 3 airports across the United States have reportedly become the first facilities to opt into TSA's new private security model that allows third-party vendors to replace the federal agents. What are those 3 airports? And I would encourage you to look them up and see why these 3 are the first to opt into private security. Tampa International Airport in Florida. Maybe Florida was a gateway for people who were coming from Central and South America. Who knows? International airports. Tampa International Airport, Charleston International Airport in South Carolina, and Des Moines, Idaho, Des Moines International Airport in Iowa, they all plan to transition to TSA, what's called a new Gold Plus program. Didn't we tell you that they were calling the corona in 2020 corona for a reason? Because corona means crown, as in the crown chakra is being activated, as in people are having a great awakening, as in Christos consciousness is coming back to us. We're having awareness that we are this Savior for whom we've been looking. Corona was used because corona means crown, as in Christos consciousness awakening, as in the second coming of Jesus, as in the trumpet Donald Trump will sound to awaken the people. It will be sounded by Michael. That's why the movie Michael came out. Michael the archangel is going to blow the trumpet in Zion. You'll have a second coming of Christ consciousness, or second coming of Christ. The Christ chakra will be awakening. The dead in Christ will rise up to ascend with Christ. The unawares, they'll arise first. The people going to wake up, and then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up with them to meet them in the air. We're all ascending in consciousness. Crown, not only as in the crown chakra being activated, but crown as in gold. We've come into a new golden era where we'll use gold now as money or instead of money, and we'll use gold to heal the planet. This is why Donald Trump talked about a golden dome. That's why people being deported, if they need to come back and start a business, they have to have a gold card. And now we have a Gold Plus program. According to July 22nd reports from the New York Times, these 3 major international airports will be using this Gold Plus program to replace TSA with private companies. Tell me if you think having a private company could work on our behalf or to our benefit. The public-private partnership first announced in a mass email to TSA staff. Look, they're not giving people letters. They're not giving them time. They're just sending a mass email. This came out in May. They got the email in May. We're getting the news just 3 days ago. It aims at modernizing aviation security through tailored security screening services unique to each facility's needs and space. So we only have 3 now airports that are using this: Tampa, Iowa, and South Carolina, but others will follow along. And the article goes on that says TSA will maintain oversight into the operations, but the agency says the program will enhance security. I'm going to ask you again, what do you think about that? Because a lot of the TSA people and some of the spokespeople do not like this. They're saying that our freedoms could now be in danger if we replace TSA with privatized companies. Very interesting. I want to know what you all think. It has private security, somebody says. Beautiful. What else do you think? Because I found this very interesting. Let me tell you something about TSA. TSA has found illegal money, has found unlawful weapons, has found ID that did not belong to people who were traveling. And guess what? They can find it all day long, but they are not mandated to report it. I'm talking about the Transportation Security Administration that was put in place after 9/11 when they said we needed extra security. Oh, you don't believe me? Let me show you. Let me turn this camera around so we can read this together. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, does not track or seize illegal money as a primary job because TSA agents look for security threats like weapons, not cash. So they look for weapons, but wait till I tell you about what happens when they look for weapons. However, recent federal investigations revealed that the TSA flagged roughly 700 million in large cash movements through the Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport between 2024 and 2025. So I'm going to continue reading this, but I just want to see you right now. Thank you. Somebody said her name is Beauty. You think it's the military. So TSA does not track or seize illegal money as a primary job because they've been looking for security threats like weapons, not cash. So recently, federal investigators revealed that TSA flagged roughly 700 million in large cash movements through the Minneapolis St. Paul International Airports. They tracked it or they flagged it. The amount around 340 million in 2024 and 350 million in 2025 was flagged at a single airport in Minneapolis. Now, isn't that where they said a bunch of Somali nationals live? Minneapolis? So how did they flag 340 million in 2024 and 350 million in 2025 flagged in Minneapolis? Because maybe, and we did do some investigating, that money from Minneapolis was going to Somalia. So perhaps this is why President Trump ended temporary protective status from the Somalis, because they are a part of a brotherhood, many of them, just like Ilhan Omar allegedly, that had an ought against the people here in America. And they feel that they have a right to steal our money and our wealth. But let's look at legality status. The cash itself was legally declared on custom forms. Let me show you. The cash itself was legally declared on custom forms when required for the amounts over 10,000, meaning that TSA and custom officials did not immediately confiscate it or make arrests at the gate. So they can flag it, they can report it, but they did not confiscate it. We're talking about TSA did not confiscate it. Hundreds of millions of dollars. General TSA rule. The TSA's official job is passenger safety. If agent spots large amount of cash, they notify law enforcement agencies like Homeland Security or the DEA, who then handles any separate currency seizure or criminal investigations. So they can flag the money, they can report it, but they don't confiscate it. And then they turn it over to law enforcement like Homeland Security, who handle separate currency seizures or criminal investigations. But what we found is that the handling was not confiscating the money. So there was hundreds of thousands of dollars per year confiscated at airports, major airports, not confiscated, flagged, but not confiscated, who would be laundering or bringing across the airports hundreds of thousands of dollars. You and I can't even bring in 10,000. Wasn't it Dr. Sabi who was alleged that wasn't he arrested and allegedly died? I think he did die because I talked to his daughter. Passed away for having $10,000. But you have illegal foreign nationals and some legal citizens here in America that was laundering money and children and drugs across airports. And even if the money was flagged, it was not confiscated. Even if ID was flagged, it was not confiscated. In fact, TSA was tested. Undercover red team tests by the Department of Homeland Security recently under the Trump administration found that TSA, or Transportation Security Administration, screeners failed to detect weapons, fake explosives, or prohibited items in roughly 95% of the trial cases in 2015 and beyond, and about 80% of trials in the subsequent 2017 covert operation. So 2015, that was actually under Obama's administration. 95% of the tests to see if TSA was catching, what they would do is Department of Homeland Security would stage transporting weapons and fake explosives and other prohibited items to see if TSA would catch them. In 2015, 95% of them failed. And then 80% or more in these trials failed 2017 after Trump came back. They tried to get a little better. But these covert operations just let us see that TSA, Transportation Security Administration, they weren't protecting anybody's freedom. They didn't confiscate the money. They didn't confiscate weapons. In fact, they just let it pass on through. And if they did flag it, they still didn't confiscate it. They might have reported it, but nobody confiscated it. Why? Could it be that the Transportation Security Administration, the government, really didn't have our best interests at heart? Could it be that they were working with the Chinese Communist Party and these other foreign nationals, like the pirates in Somalia that we've been hearing about all our lives? And we just came to figure out that they were telling the truth. Remember when President Trump uncovered what was going on in Iowa and Minneapolis? How people from that continent, in that part of Africa, Somalia, were claiming that they were using federal dollars and money to fund daycare centers and child care facilities, only to realize that there were no daycare centers or child care facilities. And now we know 350 or 340 million plus dollars were being confiscated from America back to Somalia, and God knows how much else money has been confiscated from these American lands and taken, not confiscated, but flagged. How much of it has been laundered across the airwaves? How many children were allowed to be taken from a mother's arms or a father's care away from them and trafficked to another part of the world? We've always wondered, how is it that any child 2 years old and younger can fly without any documentation, without any proof that the adult who's bringing them is their parent? I always that was a little suspicious to me. Did anybody else feel a little funny about that? If you had a child that was 2 or younger, you could bring a child, didn't matter if it was yours or not. You needed no identification to say that you were a guardian, a parent, a grandparent, nothing, no relations to the child. It's because this whole operation, family, has been illicit, illegal, egregious, horrible, complicit with grape, trafficking, and laundering. This is one of the reasons why President Trump got $70 billion to help him fund the effort to protect all of our borders, the airwaves, the water ports, the land, even what's going on at the train stations, because they were taking children across America in the trains, taking children in the deep underground military bases, taking children, drugs, and guns across the airways. And I know this for a fact because I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I want you to look it up, how in Louisville, Kentucky in 2020, 10,000 automatic weapon parts from China, manufactured by the Chinese Communist Party, were confiscated at an airport in Louisville, Kentucky in the year 2020. 10,000 automatic weapon parts confiscated. 2020 was under the Trump administration. This is just a small snippet of what's been going on. So of course you're going to hear, oh, it's going to infringe upon our freedoms now that TSA is being replaced by private companies. But now those private companies won't have to depend upon our tax dollars. And maybe you can own one of those private companies that will protect us and our freedoms. So I just wanted to bring this breaking news that it is true that the deep state is being taken down, even at the airports. President Trump got $70 billion to fund his efforts to beef up security, Homeland Security. It was Homeland Security that found that TSA screeners failed to detect weapons, fake explosives, and prohibited items. They failed 95% of the time. If you fail a test 95% of the time, baby, you're not doing your job. You need to be fired effective immediately and maybe even arrested because you're not protecting us. You even flagged certain things that was illegal and you allow it to go through. So they can flag it all day long, but again, it's not their job to confiscate it, and they didn't. Thank you. Somebody says like 2019. Rumfield, 9.1 trillion went missing via the Pentagon. Good evening, darling. So, oh, what'd you say? $3.2 trillion were missing. Privatize our Trump's rich buddies, please, somebody says. I really don't care who the privatized people are. If they gonna protect me from bombs and threats, I don't care. They probably can do a better job than TSA, where people's tax dollars are going. But if you don't like that, then why don't you create a security team and get a contract with the airports? We love to complain. We love to say, oh, please, it's not really happening. But what are you doing? Do you have a company? Have you created a foundation and then put your foundation in a trust and protected your foundation and then contracted with the airports? Because the government doesn't own the airports. So at some point, it would be great if we stopped complaining and start researching and utilizing our energy and our dollars or our wealth to create something to combat the breach of security and the enslavement that's been happening on the planet. If you want to know how to start a business, then, I got this bank. Somebody told me about a bank. Somebody told us that they went to a small bank business administration to try to get money to fund their business. And they sent them to a bank that was not attached to the banks that we know of. They sent them to a bank that is actually part of Nassar and Jassar. I can't wait. I'll give you that information when Chief Mack gives me the green light. Or if he comes on the show, hopefully he'll come on the show after we vet the source we trust. We need to look through the paperwork. You'll be able to create foundations. You can do that right now, businesses, and fund them. If you want to know how to create a nonprofit organization, I did a video with Ishmael Pruitt. Look at that video. Two, I think, no, I did one. Ishmael Pruitt, we tell you how to even fund them. We need to stop saying, oh, Trump is sending in his billionaire friends to do everything. Oh, it's the elite that's doing everything. They're not replacing the government. Why don't I replace the government? Why don't we replace the government? Why can't we create nonprofits or foundations and then fund them ourselves or each other and protect the borders? It's about time we transition our mindset, do a paradigm shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. You know why I don't live in fear, or why I don't say, oh my gosh, it's not really happening, it's just Trump's buddies? It's because I created the reality in which I'm literally sovereign and free. I created a reality where I can see the change that's happening in the world. And that's why I'm bringing the news to you today. But there were audits at the airports. There were high failure rates. In 2015 tests, agents missed contraband in 67 out of 70 attempts, a 95% failure rate. Then later in 2017, reports showed failure rates around 80%. Tests exposed weaknesses in screeners, in their focuses, and procedural compliances, and the limitation of older screening equipment, because they really didn't care in the first place. And now we're taking corrective actions by removing TSA, which is government officials, and replacing them with privatized security. Now, I happen to know everyday people who created security teams that have government contracts and private contracts to protect all type of places like airports. You can do it. The audit led to leadership changes, increased training, training academy requirements, and a push for advanced 3D baggage imaging technology. So things are changing, family. This is deep, how they weren't really protecting us. But this TSA Gold allows people, private companies, to actually be trained by TSA, but to replace them. Again, it started in Tampa, Charleston, and Des Moines, Iowa. And it will spread. This going to impact workers. Government workers that work for TSA, they're going to be impacted because they're losing their jobs. But as I said in a report I did earlier today, this gives us an opportunity to now create our own businesses, create our own foundations, and create our own banks. I brought on my podcast about 3 times now. Farmer Dre, who works at Set Apart Gardens. He worked for the government. He's former military, a former veteran. Then he took a job for the federal government. And then when President Trump came on, he took an early buyout because the government was being downsized. He took his retirement money and along with some other funding that he found, and he bought 6 acres of land. On those 6 acres of land, he's now living his dream. He's growing food. He's taking care of cattle now. He does his own butchering. He harnesses seeds. He grows food, and he teaches others how to do the same. And he sells his food. He sells the meat. He now sells classes on how to be your own butcher. He and his wife, they're doing a phenomenal job of utilizing this time period where they once had government jobs to now create a system of business, wealth for their families, and an opportunity for us to now learn how to live off the land. There's so many stories of people who have been downsized by the government or who lost their jobs, their corporate jobs or their everyday jobs, that now have the opportunity to hone their skills and create businesses and foundations and utilize them to help the masses. The deep state is being dismantled. But now what are we doing? Because I can report the news all day long. You all can report the news and tell all the people all day long about this good news. But what are we doing in the interim? And what are we doing about the problem where automatic weapons were being carried across the airwaves and being brought from other lands and taken to other lands, where money has been laundered in to America and out, drugs the same way, people the same way, laundered in or trafficked in and out. So when President Trump talks about taking a hard stance against legal and illegal immigration and migration, it's because whether they were legal or illegal, a lot of them were trafficking drugs, money, children, and weapons. While they were making it seem like only crime that was going on in the big city by indigenous people or people that were living in poverty was the deal. It wasn't just that. Who was giving them the money and the drugs and the children and the automatic weapon parts to traffic? The government, while TSA, for the most part, covered their eyes. Well, now the lid has been blown off and the covers have been pulled. What's done in the dark will be brought to the light. And now here we are. Good morning. So I just wanted to let you know, family, that this really could be a good thing. And for those who don't think it's a good thing, let's put something else in place. We can replace whatever we see a problem is. When you have an abundance mentality, see, a scarcity mentality says there's not enough, there'll never be any change, we can't do this, it won't happen, it can't. But an abundance mentality is a mentality that knows there's more than enough wealth, resources, joy, peace, love, etc. on this planet. And there are more opportunities for us to step in. It's just like the people that complain about school system. Oh, they won't let my Afro textured daughter wear her natural hair. Who cares? You're talking about the government and government officials, government funded schools won't let your child wear her Afro textured hair. So you're angry with the same government that calls you a citizen, which is the same thing as calling you chattel property or a slave. Why don't you create your own school? Why don't you homeschool your children instead? Why don't you tap into the resources in the churches that are in your community that have private schools? Why don't we as families join in with other families and create something for our children? Or, oh, Johnny is living like his hippie father and he likes his long hair and he likes to color it purple, but the school system said he can't wear his purple hair. Who cares? If Johnny wants to wear his purple hair like his hippie father or grandfather, why can't he wear it at home in his homeschool? See what I'm getting at? It's so easy for us to complain, but I'm trying to get us, no, I'm not trying. I'm helping us to see we can create our own beautiful, amazing reality. Such a wonderful time to be alive, family. We can create our own schools. We can homeschool. As a matter of fact, there are states all across the land here in America that have grants, money, resources for parents who desire to homeschool their children right in the comfort of their own homes. Florida led the way. Tennessee actually started by rejecting money from the Department of Education a few years ago. The state of Tennessee said, we don't want any money from the federal government. We don't need the Department of Education's dollars. We can fund our own school systems here. And that's what they said in Tennessee. I live in Florida. Yeah, they said, because if we take money from the federal government, then now we have to comply with what the federal government says. We have to agree to utilize their curriculum. We have to use their standardized testing, which Tennessee said we reject their standardized testing because they're culturally biased. is what Tennessee says, and many professionals say that. Actually, we reject standardized testing. They rejected the curriculum, and they said we reject all of this rhetoric and this political stuff that they say our children must now accept as part of their reality. So Tennessee rejected the money from the Department of Education. I said that then 4 or 5 years ago when it happened. They're leading the way. I said, when they rejected money from the Department of Education, I said, oh, Department of Education is they're about to lose out because they're going to lead the way and other states will follow. And they did. Florida followed and other states said, we reject money from the Department of Education. This was before the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine in 2024. Then when Trump came back, he froze the money from the Department of Education. That's why a lot of administrators, school administrators, have been let go or they're retiring early. They're forced to retire. They just won't tell people. The administrators are being let go, superintendents and down principals, vice principals, assistant principals, APs, VPs, they all got notice that the Department of Education has lost its funding. So Trump froze those monies and then he unfroze it and gave it to the states. That's how you know the deep state further proof that they're being downsized. That money was taken from the Department of Education and given to the states. States are now operating in their sovereignty because in America, according to our republic, states operate as countries. Each state is its own country. It has its own flag. It has its own theme song. It has its own rules. So if you don't see changes or I don't see changes happening the way I'd like to, then I have the power, the authority, and the right to operate on the state level to make those changes. And I have the opportunity to create my own bank, my own business, my own foundations to now get contracts or agreements with some of these places like airports to now become the private investigative team. Now I can use my foundations to start schools, and I can use my foundation. If you have a foundation, to give you money from my foundation, not from my personal coffer, from my foundation to fund your business or for you to fund mine and us to do business across foundations because now we're operating in the private or operating in trust. The states now are operating in their sovereign capacities, which means we're under our lawful republic, unbeknownst to most people. Good news for me. I look for the good news because I know it's happening. I see it's happening. Let me look at your comments. I'm sorry, family. I see that. The next minute you are saying, build your own wealth, just sharing what people may be experiencing. Not complaining, but more people than not are experiencing hardships. You're talking to who may be affected by the economy. I love your work. But in one breath, you're speaking to Sarah Jasara. The next minute, you're saying build your own wealth. Absolutely. No, I'm saying both can be true at the same time. See, when you have an abundance mentality, you can see that, darling. Both can happen at the same time. Nasara Jasara. So Nasara Jasara is actually happening. People are actually reporting that their student loans are being discharged, their mortgages are being discharged, their bank loans are being discharged. That means wiped out. And people are accessing monies through Nasara Jasara sponsored banks. But I've said this on many occasions. You don't have to wait on Nasara Jasara all Nasara Jasara is the sovereign wealth fund and you gaining access to your own trust. But yes, accumulate wealth as well. I mean, you could depend on Nasara Jasara alone. But for those that have a wealth mindset, I may not be talking to you, darling, sovereign pulse. I mean, that kind of information, might or might not be for you. But for those that have a wealth mindset, you have to know that the money that you will get in from Nasara Jasara that will go into your non-interest bearing account will be a non-interest bearing account, means it's not accumulating interest over time. So you can run right through that money. But if you're accumulating wealth and you learn about wealth and how to protect your assets, asset protection, and you teach wealth through family governance meetings and family governance methods or methodologies, then your family will learn how to protect and maintain the wealth they'll get, whether they accumulate it on their own or gain access through their trust when they get those Nasara and Jasara funds. See what I'm saying? Both can be true at the same time. Now, I can see the confusion, but you can have it, both can be true, and both are true. My book will be very important. My book is coming out. I know I keep saying it. I just started really talking about it in June. The publisher just sent me the final edits for review to be published in August. I was hoping it came out in July, but it looks like it'll be August, which is good because August in our reality is the 8th month, and 8 is my life path number. Oh, I see you, ancestors. 8 is my life path number. 8 is the number of prosperity and abundance and wealth, and I am the minister of wealth or the wealth ambassador. So it makes sense it'll come out in August, but that book will teach you about, if you don't already know about it, family governance and how we can teach our family values surrounding wealth, because wealth is more than access to your trust. Wealth is about more than getting what some people consider free money from the sovereign wealth fund. Wealth is a mindset. Wealth is about abundance and surplus, whether it be abundance and peace of mind, abundance in time. We talked about that earlier today. Abundance in energy, abundance in family relationships, abundance in human resources, abundance in precious metals, abundance in land. Nasara and Dasara does not guarantee you land, right? Abundance in gold. Nasara and Jasara does not guarantee you gold or silver. But if you have an abundance or wealth mindset that you want to or desire to pass down something to your posterity or your future generations, then you know that silver, gold, copper, rare earth minerals, land is something you can pass down so your children can eat for the rest of their lives. So your children can have a hedge against inflation if the earth ever becomes enslaved again, because you're only promised, if you've read some of the earlier texts or scripts about what these people in power intend to do, 1,000 years. You only promised that the Satan or Lucifer or the nefarious entities will be bound for 1,000 years. What happens after the 1,000 years? That's contingent upon what you and I do right now. Now, if we just splurge and have fun and gain access to Nasara and Jasara and just buy up a bunch of stuff without having a wealth management mindset, we'll run through all the money. Or we'll just, even if it's too much to run through, we'll just play. But when you're thinking about humanity in the long run, not just your bloodline and your posterity, your future generation, but you're thinking about humanity. You have a love for people. You have a love for the planet. You have a love for the animals. When you have a genuine love for it, people, animals, plant life, all of that in abundance, you want to see everyone thrive, everything on the planet thrive. So you'll do what the ancients have done. You know how everybody's waiting on the St. Germain Trust, or people are waiting on the Rodriguez Trust, or they're waiting on the King Solomon Trust, or they want me to come hurry up and get Sister Princess Elizabeth back on to talk about where she's going to trigger all these trusts that will inject trillions of dollars into the economy so we can all be free and we can all have money. You know how we've been talking about that for decades now, where those people were the people hundreds and thousands of years ago that were in a position that you and I have today to accumulate wealth. And they did it not just for their posterity and their bloodline, they did it for humanity. They earmarked a portion of their wealth to liberate humanity. So this is why I talk about accumulating wealth and Nasara and Jasara, because both are true. When you love humanity and you want to see your future generations thrive and you want the earth to continue to flourish, you, as the steward of the earth, will do your part to accumulate what you can so you can take care of the people while you're here and you can take care of them after you transition to the other side. See, this is what they don't teach us. They teach us to live in the moment. They ask you, what's your plan for the weekend? What's your plan for the morning? What do you plan in the next 5 to 10 years? Whereas some families make sure they have plans for thousands of years ahead. Certain bloodline families, like Japanese companies and families, and others in the Philippines, the Rodriguez Trust, those are Philippines that have been accumulating wealth for thousands of years, hundreds, some say thousands. The King Solomon Trust, yeah, King Solomon, his bloodline married other bloodlines, they accumulated wealth that's going to be injected into the global economy. So I would encourage us to, I would say, know what your values are, and whatever your values are, that then do that. And anything that I present on my channel that aligns with you, do that. Anything that doesn't align with you, I can appreciate. Don't do that. Only do what aligns with you. So yes, we're going to have both. We're going to have wealth from Nasara and Jasara, and we'll have wealth if you're interested in investing in stocks, bonds, real estate, right? 'Cause why not invest in real estate at some point or another? Because if you have land, you can build on the land, not just a place for shelter for yourself, but shelter for many, many generations. You can have multi-generational living right on 1 or 2 acres of land, or less even. You can do it in one under one roof. They have this new thing out, or relatively new, called barnominiums, where people are building what resembles a barn, but it's actually shelter for people, and they're open spaces. They require less or fewer materials, and it costs less to build. And when you think about that and you consider how it's costs less to build, you can create or build multiple barnuminiums on 1 acre of land for many generations. And then you will have different homes there. You can have cattle there. You can have your dogs and all your other animals there. You can have farmland there. You can create businesses on the land. You can do all type of things. Depending on whatever type of businesses you do, you can also get government grants. You can ask people to donate. People have philanthropic causes for people who have land, who grow food, who have cattle. Oh man, we could just open up our mind to a world of amazing opportunities as it relates to abundance and wealth. So think about land. If you have, I know people say some people are hurting, but you have extra cash, or if you pull money out of your 401k, you can roll it into gold or silver. You can roll it into land. And these are hard assets that appreciate over time instead of depreciating like United States dollars and anything attached to it. You can utilize that to come out of debt. Even though Nasara and Jasara is going to happen, some people are like, I'm not waiting on Nasara and Jasara to save me. I'm going to get out of debt myself. Join my private group. We have an economist that came and taught us how to get out of debt. I had a credit repair company. I've taught people how to challenge things on their credit report, how to call collectors if that's your value system, and negotiate paying half or only paying 60% of the debt, and then have them to, when I pay for delete, having them to delete it off your account. Or you can write a letter to tell them, write a letter and give these credit bureaus 30 days to take it off your account, because all of these things on your credit report, if it's in collections, it has not been validated. They can't prove it belongs to you. They don't sell the original contract with your wet ink signature. They just sell the debt, some numbers on the screen, and say it belongs to you. But if they can't prove it, according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Section 609, that it belongs to you by providing the original contract with a wet ink signature, then guess what? They got 30 days to remove that from your credit report, and they have to do that because that's their rule. We go into detail on how to get rid of these credit stains, and that's on your credit report. In a private group, you can hit the join button and we'll help you with that. You have access to me in my business email, and I answer people in a private group directly, and I answer quickly. So if you're in a private group, you want to know how to get out of, say you want to get out of debt, you want to know how to increase your credit score, you want to know how to negate those things that's in your collection that's in collections, or that may be in bankruptcy or in judgment. We talk about things like that in the private group. I am a credit repair specialist. I don't do it individually anymore, but I teach the private group how to do that. I even left them the letter, and brought in economists on to share that information. We talk about investing in silver, investing in gold in the private group. We talk about also investing in certain stocks that likely won't crash through the stock market collapse. I said likely, I can't say it's a guarantee, but it's more likely because these particular stocks are important. And even if it take a dip, it's going to go up most likely because we're transitioning from bonds and a debt-based society to one that is now contingent upon real hard assets. We talk about investments in our private group. We talk about foreign currencies, what's happening in foreign countries, which foreign countries are actually asking for American investors like you and me to invest in their economy, to invest in their stock market, to invest in their currency, to invest in their countries. We go into detail in a private group. So hit the join button if you're interested. And on tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time in a private group, we're going to bring on an economist, and we're going to bring on a financial advisor to talk about certified people, okay, to talk about whole life insurance, other insurance, to talk about utilizing different methodologies to accumulate wealth or to transfer the wealth that you have. So I hear you. Some people are hurting, but if you have a cell phone and you can afford a cell phone bill every single month, you probably have a few dollars to invest in foreign currencies, honestly. And here's the thing that I've noticed about most people, not all people, most of us are in a predicaments that we're in today based on the decisions we made yesterday. Because when everything was good, when everybody was eating well, when the economy was thriving, when people were partying and living it up, there were some people in the background saying, prepare, prepare, prepare. There were some people in the background saying, put aside toiletries, put aside money, take some cash and put it aside and pay yourself first. There were some people that were saying, protect what you have. But the times were so good that some people didn't listen. But those that did listen found themselves to be in a better position. Almost every single person that I talk to that's having, not everybody though, that's having a hard time, might have made one or two mishaps or miscalculated certain things, so that now we're in a conundrum. I'm not blaming anybody. Things happen, situations happen, people lose their jobs, government gets flaky. But I will say we were never supposed to be dependent upon the government anyway. So yes, I talk about accumulating wealth, because if you accumulate wealth, you'll be able to take care of your own family, your own community, your own tribe. You won't be dependent upon the government. But see, this is what I mean. We became too lax. We left our lands. We left our farms. Some people will say some of the farms were stolen from us. Then we went to the city. We worked for the city. We had big fun. We partied. Some people partied. I'm not a partier. Some people partied. Some people misappropriated their funds. We had so much fun. We miscalculated. We thought the government was always going to be around. We thought the government jobs would be around. We thought the government benefits would be around. Oh, you had people that got so comfortable getting government benefits that we didn't prepare for the future. I told one of my children, I think it was my son, I said, imagine if all the people who were living on welfare had said, I'm going to utilize this time where I have free housing to save a little money. I'm going to utilize this time while I have free daycare to go to school and get a trade. I'm going to utilize this time while they're offering free daycare to get a college degree. And some people say college degrees don't matter. Mine does. And if it didn't, you wouldn't be here listening to me. Imagine if some of us had taken our resources and we put it into something and let it grow over time. But what the people in power did, they put music into our reality that taught people how to party. They put movies in our reality that taught people how to waste their time and their energy. They put all this bad stuff in our reality to teach people how to only focus on their sacral chakra and sex, 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 party, 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 have fun, fun, fun. And then implemented remedies for having all this sex. You can get pregnant and have an abortion. You can just use birth control and just have as much sex as you can, and then have as many babies as you can, live off the government, or unalive your babies. And a lot of people weren't utilizing our wisdom. A lot of us are in a predicament we are in based on the decisions we made. And nobody wants to tell us that because we're too concerned about people's feelings and we're too comfortable blaming the white man, white supremacy, and the government. But if families had stuck together and people had worked together like our families did right out of so-called slavery, we wouldn't be in this predicament. Because right after the Great Depression, people classified as Black was doing all right. Right after slavery, we had more wealth than we do today. But we bought into the lie that we don't have to stay home beyond 18. We bought into the lie to kick out our children at 18 years old. We bought into the lie to leave the farms and leave the family and go off and have big fun. And now we're dealing with the consequences, and we want to cry and blame everybody else and ask everybody else to feel sorry for us. Well, you know what? At some point, we have to take accountability for our being complicit in our own enslavement. Now, when we grow up and we say, I've been complicit in making some decisions that maybe I could have done differently, that's when we'll do a paradigm shift and say, I take ownership of my life because I'm the captain of my life. I'm the creator of my reality. I am God, the scripts say. Meaning I have rule, reign, and control over my own life. And if slavery is existing in my life, then that may be because I agreed to the enslavement. Some people figure that out. The moment we make up our minds, the universe will conspire to assist us. The moment we make up our minds, I'm God, I control my own life. That's all that means. I am the Messiah for whom I've been looking. Messiah means the anointed one, the chosen one. That's it. If you are anointed, chosen, or set apart for a particular mission, if you've been selected to do a certain job, or you chose yourself, or you desire to come into this reality to utilize a skill, to utilize a gift, that means you're anointed. You're set apart. You are a Messiah. You are a Christ. You are the Christ for whom you've been looking. And the moment we wake up to that reality is the moment we'll stop blaming everybody else and take ownership for our own lives. And then when we wake up and we agree to, I am God, I do create my own reality, I do have dominion, and all power in heaven and earth is given unto me, then the universe, the whole multiverse, everything and everybody around you will bow to your command. You're talking to a woman that was raised in the projects of Cleveland, Ohio. I was born to a 15-year-old woman and a 17-year-old man. They were still teenagers. But my mother never allowed me to call myself Black. She never allowed me to watch movies about slavery. She never allowed me to watch television. She said white people can make C's and get ahead. You have to make A pluses, make them. And I did, because the higher the expectation, the higher the achievement. Some people say if you shoot for the stars, you might land on the moon. I say I shot for the stars and I grabbed me a few of them. Because I've known that I'm God. My name means king. My name means wealth. In Persia, literally it means king, regal, royalty. The foundation in Cherokee is my name. So I was born of a young woman at 15, she dropped out of school in the 10th grade to give birth to me. My father, who was 17 at the time, he was born of good parents, but he went astray and selected drugs, tried drugs one time and got hooked. So, in order to keep up that reality when you on drugs, sorry, Dad, I'm looking at my dad's picture right now. You have a lifestyle that is not conducive to children. Raised in the projects, I saw my mom struggle. But my mother had the wherewithal, through her search for spirituality, she found systems that taught us to raise above our living circumstances. She learned to eat to live. She changed our diet to eating clean, to juicing, to not eating any salt or sugar, to eating vegetation and fruits. If we ate meat, it was fish on Friday, something like that. She made us read. While other children were outside playing, Lolita Janie Johnson said, y'all gonna learn to read. We were reading before we started school and writing whole essays and critical thinking pieces before we started school for my mother, who was a teenager, dropped out of school. Where she got that? I'm telling you, in her spiritual search, she landed upon the Nation of Islam. She studied a little Buddhism. She studied a little Hare Krishna. I still remember dancing around with Caucasian men who had bald, shaved heads and pieces of hair hanging out, singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in Cleveland, Ohio, downtown Cleveland, Ohio. But as a small child, I looked across all of those spiritual systems and those different places we would go, even the Catholic Church, and I selected the good from each one of them. And so did my mother, and we incorporated them into our lives and we utilized them. And my mother said, you will always tell me what you did, not what you think you're going to do or what you might do. Tell me what you've accomplished. And we were never allowed to use the word can't. If you said can't, you got smacked in the mouth. You're never allowed to say can't. You ask, how can I? Or you tell mom what you did, what you achieved. You were never allowed to be slouch in your chair. You couldn't be humpback. No, you had to sit straight up with your head up as if a string was pulled from your head and all your internal parts were pulled up straight, because your posture tells other people how to treat you. If your posture is slouchy, you're slouchy in your finances. If your posture is slouchy, you're slouchy with your energy. If your posture is slouchy, you're slouchy with your eating habits, is the way we were taught. That may not be true in your reality. You had to sit, stand, talk, walk, and do everything correctly. When we wrote essays for my mother, if there was one eraser mark or one mark that was out of line or out of the lines, she tore it up and said, start over again. When you woke up in the morning, you woke up before the sun came up, you did all your chores, you scrubbed the baseboards, you scrubbed the floors, you scrubbed the walls, you cleaned out all of the drawers in your chest of drawers, you organized all your paper, and everything had to be clean early in the morning at the crack of dawn. Then you did your schoolwork for mom. Forget the schoolwork for the school education department. That came after
after you did work for mom. And we had flashcards. My brother and I had to teach each other math. My mom didn't even know all the stuff we had to learn. We were flashing cards with each other. 9 times 5, 45. 8 times 10, 80. With just one. Now we're good at math. This is before we started school. You're talking 5 years old, knowing all of my multiplications, division, subtraction, and addition. You're talking about reading the encyclopedia. My brother was on my show, Tim Pruitt. Watch the video, Where Are the Good Men with Tim Pruitt. We had to read the encyclopedia. One of the encyclopedias started with Aesop Fables because Aesop, A, starts with the A-E-S-O-P, something like that. We had to start from A to Z reading the encyclopedia, that one and the Encyclopedia Britannica. We had 2 sets. And then after we finished A through Z, we had to start right back over A through Z again. And we had to keep doing that throughout our childhood. And we had to read the dictionary, and we had to define the words, and we had to read the newspaper called, back then, the Balanian News. We were in the Nation of Islam, and write critical thinking pieces, not only summarize what it was about, but give our critical thought, how we felt, our reaction to it, and what we were going to do with the information. No television, no outside just playing a run and roughshod, but being very, very intentional about what you're doing with your life now and what you're going to do in your life in the future. When you're intentional, doesn't matter what a government does, doesn't matter what Trump's billionaire rich friends does or what Elon Musk does or says. What matters is what you do to protect yourself, your children, and your future generations. That's what I'm about over here. I'm very, very passionate about that because there was no room for excuses in Lolita Janey Johnson's house when she was 15 years old in the projects of Cleveland, Ohio. And I would tell even my children, if you follow what I say, you're going to succeed. Anybody follow what I say, even when I work in higher education, I would tell my students, if you do what I say, you follow the plan, you can help me create the plan, but if you follow it without excuses, you'll be successful. But if you make excuses about slavery, white supremacy, white people, even redlining, all those things that were against us that we don't like, yeah, it's real. It did happen. Yeah, all these foreign nationals came over here and accessed our trust and stole from us and then took it all across the country. But now we're getting all that back and we're taking it back. And I'm teaching us how to take it back. We don't have to wait on the Tsar and Desar. We don't have to wait on the government. We don't have to wait on anybody because you and I are our own saviors. You know what? If we get a marriage culture again, and I'm not talking about getting a license from the state, I'm talking about entering into covenant agreements. If that's your value system and you have 2 incomes, you'll do a lot better than if you just rely on the government, because the government is closed. It's gone. It's done with. It doesn't exist anymore. You have a few things in place that resembles a government that's currently being dismantled. But if we regain a covenant agreement culture where we agree to be in some type of covenant relationship, and we raise children up or bring them up in that environment, then we won't have so many children out here shooting each other out on the streets. If we have a covenant agreement, and the covenant agreements could be that you are the mother and the father of these children or that child, and you work together, even if you're not under the same roof, but you have a covenant. You have a sacred agreement between the 2 of you to raise those children to the best of your ability and to provide them with and surround them with elders and mentors, as Ishmael Pruitt, who came on my show the other day, who can help develop them. So we need to bring back family culture. We need to bring back the tribe. We need to bring back community, because this is what's going to protect us from any other type of enslavement that might try to rear its ugly head in the future. I'm talking about accountability. That's what I'm talking about. So I get really passionate about us doing things on our own, us making things happen, us creating a beautiful, amazing reality, us being positive. It's like we have been so used to only the government providing and taking on that slavery mentality and blaming. that we don't even take responsibility for our own selves. What were we doing when we had jobs? Were we saving any money? Were we putting any aside? What were we doing with the people that were in our lives that really wanted to build a strong foundation with us? Were we really investing in that? Or were we looking on the outside at somebody else that looked better or had something on the outside that appealed to our base and carnal nature rather than thinking about how we can grow together? See, a lot of us really, we were having big fun. We were splurging our money, having a good time. Meanwhile, blaming a white man for everything, all the failures. But Lolita Janie Johnson, my mother wasn't having that. So that's why I'm the way I am. It's my constitution. It's the way I'm built. Speaking of constitution, I talk about family constitution in my book. What are your laws, rules, and values that you, your children, your grandchildren, everybody in your family espouse? And how can you teach family constitution? Well, we've been living in an individualistic society, so a lot of us don't know what that looks like. Well, it's time for us now to bring back covenant agreements, to bring back contract. Now that it was contract, I call it covenant, a contract agreement. But I don't like the word con, like con artist comment. I like covenant agreements better than contractual agreements are better than contracts. Bring back covenant agreements. We need to bring our elders out of nursing homes. Nursing homes are closing, family. The medical profession, nurses, nurses assistants, licensed practicing nurses, LPN, a lot of them are quitting or losing their jobs. And many of them that were recruited from the Philippines, from Africa, different nations in Africa, India, and abroad, they're getting sent back home because while some of them did come over here legally, a lot of them did not. And a lot of them are over here on fake medical degrees, fake licenses. We reported that. We broke that news with Chief Mack about how millions of fake medical degrees were sold here from India. Right? So that's why we have so many misdiagnoses. And who were they practicing on? Everybody. But who were they practicing on the most? The ones who have the highest rates of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, organ harvesting, botched surgeries. Oh, the indigenous people classified as Black. Who had the most hysterectomies? Black women. Why? Because they wanted our wombs and our organs. And a lot of these people from abroad didn't care about us. They were told that we're the derelicts of society, just like the Europeans who came here were told the same thing. They were told that we're 3/5 of a person. Our brains are smaller. We're less intelligent. We're not worthy. We're just worth them doing investigations on. We're just worth them practicing on while they were harvesting our organs. Who have the most cancer diagnoses? And many of them misdiagnoses. We do. Because they needed our genetics. The ones they said didn't matter and were worthless, they're dominant, superior. They're dominant. That's what dominance means. Wait till people realize that there are people right now injecting themselves with melanin and cells from the organs that's been harvested from the women and infusing themselves with blood from melanated people because they want to live longer. And they're trying to transmute the diseases that's in their bodies because they have recessive genetics. That doesn't make them bad or worth less than anybody else. It just means they need the genetics. So these people that came here, these foreign nationals, were given commands to practice on us, experiment on us, extract our organs, extract our blood. That's why the blood banks are in the Black communities. And the churches are funded. Is that you, son? Okay. So all I'm saying is a lot of people that are here in the Americas or that were here were doing all type of nefarious things to the indigenous people. They getting sent back home. Glory, hallelujah. And I don't even think the Europeans care that they're going back home because they've even replaced their jobs and replaced them in a lot of ways. They got to go back home and they can get access to their own sovereign wealth funds and they can live off the wealth and the land that their own ancestors left for them. And all this money laundering that they've been doing, that now is that wealth that was confiscated from our lands, our ancestors, us as the descendants of our ancestors, that wealth is coming back. That's the greatest wealth transference in history because the greatest wealth theft occurred first. And now it's being redistributed back to we the people. Everybody else gone, they got to go back home. Anybody that's allowed to be here, they'll have to operate in trust. And our treaties that were supposed to be honored will now be honored. All these people that try to make us feel bad, we're done with the shaming and the blaming and the, oh, we're just here because we want better opportunities. No, we're learning that most of the people here from other foreign lands are here to steal our wealth and to send it back home to their people. Do you think they help their own country for real, for real? Well, all the wealth that's being redistributed or that had been stolen from America, from we, the indigenous people, because everything that came from here came from us. All that wealth that was stolen that went abroad, why didn't it clean up the water? Why didn't it clean up the sewers? Why didn't it clean up the pollution? Why didn't it create jobs? Who did that wealth go to? It went to other rich people and their bloodline families abroad. Money, children, organs from indigenous people. Because every person on the planet, every nation on the planet started off heavily melanated. We all know that by now. But they were, then you had hybrids that were created. And then they were, I don't know how you call it. The melanin was washed out. But everybody knows that the original was heavily melanated, and that's why they steal our organs, because they want to continue to live. Instead of operating in trust and saying, hey, will you marry me? Because when a woman with recessive genetics has relations with a male with dominant genetics, and they are making love, those genetics and his genes and the material that comes from his body actually does wonders for her womb. That's why a lot of women who couldn't have babies, once they made it with a melanated man, could all of a sudden have babies. This is scientifically proven. The proper thing to do if they were operating in trust, I'm talking about people from all over the world, they would ask, would you marry me? Would you enter into a covenant relationship with me? Or they would just take it on the chin that the sun is going to just eventually do its job, because the sun actually works with what's natural on the planet. If the sun is working against something on the planet, then it's not natural. But instead of stealing the organs, stealing the wealth, stealing the blood from the indigenous peoples all across the world, they could have done something that was more benevolent, but they chose to do otherwise. And now they're reaping the reward for what they did. They're being put in prison. They're having their wealth confiscated. They're being prosecuted, and some of them will face the guillotine. And if the guillotine isn't a firing squad, it most definitely is the Son. That's the Son of God that brings salvation and justice. The SUN is bringing justice on the planet. And if anybody wants to live in harmony and justice, they're going to have to deal with the people of the sun. And operate in trust. That means if you are a person of the sun, you have to operate within high integrity and high honor, because now everybody's going to have to come to you. This isn't even about being narcissistic. This is reality. Because anything that's recessive, if it wants to live, has to be reabsorbed. They spent so much time trying to whitewash stuff. They were only hurting themselves. All these people in India praising white skin, fair skin, bleaching out these skin. People in Africa bleaching out their skin. People in America bleaching out their skin, or trying to marry white because white was right. They were only bleaching out their dominant God genes. Now they're going to have to come right back around to doing what will help them to live. And that's why the president in Spain in 2012 was telling the people in Spain, marry some of these Africans. I command you, he was telling the women, to have babies by them so our genetics can live. Crazy. The earth is bringing about justice. The planet is bringing about justice. And if anybody wants to live, if their genetics work in opposition with the sun, they're going to have to come to the people of the sun and operate in trust. It's just reality. Or live in an environment where the sun will not unalive them, because now we have 2, and some people say 3 suns. Because the people that created beings from the womb of the melanated woman was not supposed to mess with genetics like that. And then mix them with animals and mix them with other recessive genes. They weren't supposed to do that. They make movies about that. I wish there's one movie come to mind where they talk about that, and how they were creating beings and bleeding out or breeding out the dominant genetics. And now they were trying to figure a way to recreate or be reabsorbed by the dominant genetics. That one prominent movie escapes me. So here we are in a whole new reality where everything is being returned back to the way it's supposed to be. If you missed my video or my broadcast I did with Rod Hayes, you can go to my YouTube channel and put in Rod Hayes, and I have a video with him that says everything must be returned. Everything. The American identity, people call themselves that are American that are not, they got to give that back. Notice they know who they really are. That's why they put Italian American, Jewish American, Japanese American, such and such American. Whatever they put in front of that, that's what they are. That's where the people come from. That's their nationality. American definition. Look up 1828 Webster's definition of American. The copper-colored races discovered by Europeans, but now applied to Europeans. It can be applied to you all day long. That doesn't make you American. The copper-colored races discovered by Europeans, but now applied to Europeans. That's what an American is. A United States citizen is not an American. I don't care what the deep state called you. They called you citizens. People took on the title American. I'm American. I'm a United States citizen. I was born here. No, baby, you are what your mama is, what your people are, wherever your people sprung from the soil at, or wherever they were created, whether it be in a lab or created, by mating on those lands. United States citizen is chattel property of the United States Incorporated, the government that's now being dismantled, the one that's insolvent, the one that the United States Treasury Department reported about in September 2025 and said they're now bankrupt and insolvent. Yeah, the United States Incorporated gave people a title, a citizenship, meaning they're chattel property of the corporation that grants them privileges, not rights. Rights are given to the sovereigns. Rights are really afforded to you by God or the Creator. So a lot of people are going to have to go back to the land of their gods, to whatever nation they're from, and they'll have rights there. You don't have rights to the land here. If your people didn't spring from the soil here, you have rights to the land from wherever you came, from whence you came. I don't know why that's so hard for people. I don't even think that's really hard for people to agree to or to accept. I think what's hard for them to accept is the fact that they've been taken advantage of, the copper colored, indigenous, so-called Negro, African American, Black man and woman for so long. They've taken advantage of their resources, their title and identity as American, and they've taken advantage of all of the enslavement and all of the theft for so long that the thought of giving it back to the proper owner just upsets them. It's hard to grasp that I'll have to give up what never belonged to me in the first place. I understand it, but I will never understand or overstand it. I understand it. I get it, I should say. But I'm going to end with this. Sister Janine, our chat moderator, sent me something, and I'm going to present this to you. It was a video of a brother asking a guy. He said, let me ask you a question. And I want to ask you this. If a Black man stole a car from your mother and then gave it to his brother, does that make that car his or his brother's car? A Black man stole a car from your mother and gave it to their family member. Whose car is it? Is that the Black man's car, or is that still your mother's car? And then the Black man takes it, give it to his brother, and then the brother dies and he gives it to his brother's child. Does the car belong to the brother's child, the brother, the Black man that stole it, or does the car still belong to your mother? And then if that person dies and they give it to their child, and that person dies and they give it to their child, whose car is it? Is it now their car? Is it the Black man's car? Is it the Black man's family car? Or is it your mother's car? You see, just because somebody stole something and gave it to somebody else and then gave it to their children, and all their generations doesn't mean that the car now belongs to them. That car still belongs to the person from whom it was stolen. So now we come into a time period where everything has to be returned. We command it to be so, therefore it will be, and it's happening in real time. So now what people need to do is start to plan ahead, because everything's going to be returned. Whether it happens today, tomorrow, 100 years from now, it's going to be returned. We're commanding our stuff back, and the government can no longer hold on to the land that it confiscated from the indigenous people. Their time is up. They only have leases for a certain amount of time and agreements. And according to universal laws and world laws, international laws, they can't hold on to stuff that don't belong to them. Their time is up. It has to be returned. So people need to start planning, think about where they're going to go, how fast they going to go home, because they getting up out of here. You ain't got to go home, Trump said, but you got to get up out of here. And these people that came here illegally and some even legally are saying, I'm not going home. So other countries have stepped up and said, oh, but if you don't go home to the land of your ancestors, we'll take you, because you got to get up out of the lands of the indigenous people here in America. And so now that these other countries have stood up and said, we'll take them. Now people are saying, oh, that's okay. I can go home. It ain't that dangerous. It ain't that far away. Because President Trump and the Trump administration, who are really being ran by and ruled by and governed by a military, some of whom are not human, our galactic family, galactic brothers and sisters, they're now saying, you got to either choose, either you're going to take government benefits or you're going to get a green card, either or. And if you're already taking government benefits, you've made your choice. You got to go bye-bye. It ain't like they're saying you got to go to the moon, Venus, or Mars. They're just saying you got to go back home But people have gotten so complacent, filled with such entitlement, and so comfortable with theft, whether it's identity theft, resource theft, energy theft, I don't care, organ theft. They've gotten so comfortable with it that they don't want to do what's right. We don't want reparations. We want and command restoration. Restorative justice means not only do you pay for the crimes that you committed, but you return with interest. You return it 7 times the amount of what you've stolen. And if you don't have that, then the least you can do is go back home. President Trump, Marco Rubio, the State Secretary of State, all of them are really not who you think they are. They're working on behalf of the gods that sprung from this lands. So everybody now has to take accountability, no matter where you come from, who you are, wherever you are on the sound of my voice, for where you are at this time, whether it's your fault or not. I'm not even blaming fault. Take accountability for your own life and for the life of your children and grandchildren, your posterity, and do something about it. Whether it be create a plan, have family governance meetings and teach them values, get back to a covenant agreement society, get back to some morals, values, and principles, and establish community so that we can thrive and work together. Everybody has to take accountability for their own life because, like it or not, America is not for everybody. This isn't the land for the home and the free. No, you can scratch all that. This is the home for the indigenous, autogenous people that sprung from the soil, and anybody we agree to stay here. Because most of the people that are here, we did not bring or agree to. America is for Americans, just like Japan is for Japanese. But everybody has wealth, resources, or whatever in their own lands, or at least they can accumulate wealth in this time that we live in by taking what they have and rolling it over into hard assets and then putting those assets in trust so they can pass it down to their posterity. Things are changing. The reality has shifted. We've entered into a whole new reality, a whole new time period. Some foreign countries don't want them, like Jamaica. A lot of foreign countries don't want people because you know why? Because they know what they've been doing to us Americans, us indigenous people here. A lot of these nations are like, no, we don't want y'all coming here because y'all were pirates. You stole from the indigenous people. You stole from the taxpayers there and you lied. You got welfare benefits. You got benefits for all your family members. And you think you about to come over into my country and do the same thing? Not on my watch. They're saying you got to go home. While they've been throwing us in prison, creating their prisoner pipeline programs, arresting our men on petty charges or for doing nothing at all, holding them, keeping them ransom. Look at my video that I did with the young elder where he talks about how they've held our people in ransom by sending them, putting them in jail, and then saying, making them call home and saying, oh, you got to post my bond, or my bail. I'm being held in ransom. Yeah, they did all kind of things. And if they didn't do it, the people that foreign nationals that were here, they were complicit. Did they fight against it actively while they were on our soil? No, they did not. They exploited the enslavement and the fact that we were prisoners of war. They knew exactly what they were doing, which is why they put their businesses in their medical centers so they can practice on us in our communities and their fake food places. Talking about, oh, I'm in a poverty, I'm in a food desert in the Black community. Therefore, I'm going to create a convenience store and fill it with a bunch of junk food and processed foods and call it food. They knew exactly what they were doing while they were poisoning us in our communities in their fake stores by just declaring they were in the food desert and getting all these government benefits and grants and stealing credits from our trust. They knew what they were doing. They exploited our position as prisoners of war. so they can go home and we don't feel no way about it, except for the quicker, the better, the sooner, the better. I said it for you. And what's interesting, it's not just the indigenous people, it's the Europeans that were brought here. It's the so-called legal immigrants that are here. Everybody's sick and tired of just anybody bum rushing our borders because we know that they were laundering money, confiscating our wealth, sending it back to their nation, paying off the cartel that allowed them to be here, trafficking women and putting them on the stripper pole or putting them in pornography and then feeding that poison to our husbands. No, we're all ready for them to go. The sooner the better. And I don't care who doesn't like it, because what's true is true. It's happening whether people like it or not. Anybody here unlawfully or that's doing nefarious things or that exploited the indigenous people here have to go. Their time is up, period. And anybody that refuses to go, that means they're complicit in the criminality and enslavement of the people here in these Americas. And what's interesting to me is that some people will fight against that and will speak against that and try to make Americans feel guilty for wanting to be free from their enslavement or entanglements. No, we don't feel guilty. No, nobody's being racist. A racist erase the resources, and you've had your time getting the resources, racing to resources that belong to us. That's what racism is, a race to resources. Who gonna get the Americans' resources the fastest? Who gonna take from the indigenous people that are prisoners of war the fastest, and who's gonna do the most? Who gonna take the most land and then stake their poles and their flags on their lands and have multi-generational living on their lands the fastest? Who's going to do it? The time is up. It's a new season. It's a new day. No, TSA doesn't report large cash. Large cash, somebody asked me in the comment section. They don't report it because TSA was complicit with the deep state and the Communist Party because they were all trying to do a number on us. Notice at Biden's so-called inauguration, all those people wearing red and gold, this the colors of China, but not the People's Republic of China, but rather the Chinese Communist Party. The J letter in front of them, that's not the real ones, but the ones that start with the ZIONISTS. Those, all of them were colluding together. But pay attention to what's happening in some of these nations that colluded against us. And for the people that say, oh, the Jewish military migrated or merged with the United States military, I want you to consider that whenever somebody conquers another nation, what happens? You might overtake their military, you could unalive them, or you can allow them to be reabsorbed into your empire or who you are. So I have to look into that further to see if it was true that the two merged. But I know we're saving Israel for last because Israel's a fake country, the one that we heard of that's over in the Palestinian region. And those people that call themselves the true people of God, we know who they really are. They're not us. So they're not real. Unless they made it with us. Now they can mate with us and still be us. And they can present as being recessive or having recessive genetics. But if they made it with us, all they were looking for is having a little bit of us. That one drop rule that they told you, if you got one drop of black, it's a bad thing, while they were getting whatever drop they could, even if it was only one drop, because then they can steal our inheritance while still presenting as Caucasoid, but really having the blood rights to the wealth. Oh, we see them, but their time is up too. Because the people in power, they're not who they look like. They look like Europeans, but they're not. They're actually bloodline beings coming back to reclaim the lands and the resources and making covenant agreements to help other nations acquire and repatriate their resources back to them for their people. Everything that's happening is happening just the way it's supposed to, little by little, and then all at once. Family, my name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I've presented to you information that will empower you when or if you have an abundance mentality. Because when you have an abundance mentality, it doesn't matter where you come from. You're going to want to do the right thing, the correct thing for you and your posterity. And that does not include stealing somebody else's wealth. Neither does it include exploiting somebody else's position as a former prisoner of war. But the prisoners have been released, and the sleeping giant has been awakened. We are the gods for whom we've been looking. And we encourage you to wake up from your slumber and realize that you are the gods for whom you've been looking. And as such, command all your wealth to be returned back to you and go back and get it. Create your own bank. Accumulate whatever you can. If you don't have anything to accumulate, look for a way to do it, or put what you have together so that you can make it. Because no man's an island. I see all these women that's out talking about living in their cars. Why are you living in your car? Where are those children's fathers? Oh, it's just me and my kids roughing it out. Send me some money. No, go to that child's father. Drop off that child to its father. And if you want to be out here alone, struggling in a car, that's on you. Why would you put your child or your children in that predicament? Give it to its father. Go home to your parents. We're acting like we don't have any other options, but we've been so conditioned to blame everybody else for our predicament that we rather struggle and take our children to hell with us and let them live in poverty in the street and on the road in a car. Where's the father? And if you're a man, what's the mother? And if you're a man or a woman, where are your parents? What about your grandparents, your aunt, your uncle, a church, a pastor, a priest, a prelate, somebody, the elders? Most people don't have to struggle, is where I'm getting at. And if you are a church, are your doors open? Are you helping the people? What are you doing with that 501c3? The grants that you've gotten, that some of them have gotten to open up bookstores and to have meetings with their Black Greek fraternal orders and their white Greek Masons. What are you doing with that money? Why isn't your cabinet open for the hungry? Have you utilized the money to create housing? Because nobody should be suffering or struggling in this reality when there's more than enough. We're just too haughty to go back home, too arrogant to say I'm sorry, and too individualized to understand and to know the importance of community. Why are our children suffering? Why are you living in a car? Some of you can go back home. I would encourage you to do so. Humble yourself. Apologize. Ask your mom for help. Ask your dad for help. Ask your husband to take you back. Ask your wife to take you back. And if that can't happen, give the children to the other parent. Society has taught us that only the woman can have the child when it took two to make it. What am I saying? I'm saying we don't really have to struggle like this. If you're out there struggling, some people choose it, and that's fine. Some people may not have any options. I'm saying a lot of them do. And if you're in a position where there's only you, find a like-minded person and agree to put your resources together, because a two-band cord is stronger than an individual cord. And where two or three are gathered in the name of your ancestors, the creator and the spirit of your ancestors will be in the midst and will help you come up with a solution for whatever problem you find yourself in. There's always a way around whatever reality these beings try to put before us. It first starts with knowing that you are God, knowing that you are the creator of your own life, and then commanding the multiverse, the universe, everything to conspire to assist you. I didn't say demand, I didn't say beg, I didn't say implore, I didn't say beseech, I said command, to speak with authority that everything must be returned to you. And when you start walking and speaking like that, it will happen. And you will then align yourself with certain people and energies that will help you get the job done. Because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Here am I, and others will present themselves as well. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I trust that I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. I'll talk to you later, family. On tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm meeting with the private group about finances. We're going to do a financial report, a global financial report. We're going to talk about investments, and we're going to talk about how the rich use this whole life and other policies or insurance and other type of modems in order to not only generate wealth, but to pass down or transfer wealth. So I'll see you in the private group, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to be a part of the group, hit that join button. We teach about wealth accumulation, family governance, and asset protection in the private group. It's a safe place for like-minded people who are looking for ways to pass down generational wealth. You don't even have to be rich. You don't have to have any money at all in order to create wealth, because you could go to a coin shop. Sometimes they give away old currencies, or you can get currencies for just a few pennies at a pawn shop, an antique shop. We talk about things like that. So more about that, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm getting ready to leave at 7:30. At 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Chief Pontiac, also known as Chief Rod Hayes, will be on Drea Millen's show. I forget what she calls it. Drea's Driyah, and they're going to talk about the coming together of matriarchs, I believe. So I'll be there at 8 o'clock. Then remember, tomorrow, 10 o'clock, I'm not going to be on the show. I'm just going to be watching the show. So you can join me watching there. And then see you 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time in my private group. Have a lovely evening, Cuba. It's good to see you. Hey, Jerron. Cuba says, I heard they stopped government churches from feeding and housing the homeless on their own property. The government did this. But they don't have to do it on their own property. They can do it in the name of a trust. You see, they can do it in the name of a trust on lands that the trust owns, and the church won't own it. They can find a way. There's always a way to circumvent the government and the deep state. Great news, somebody said. Great news. Things are changing. I love you, family. I love you, and I'll see you later. See you on the other side, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the private group. Hit that like button on your way out, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and join our private membership group. And we'll talk about investments, living in a wealthy reality, and how you can generate and protect wealth and assets for your posterity, your future generations. Peace, family.